This conversation begins with a statement. Fathers, be mindful of your children. Let me say it a different way. Fathers, be mindful of your seeds. You see, we all love to dib and dab in the word fatherhood. And we all like being the man. I mean, let's be for real. We love being called the man. I mean, even some women like being called the man because being the man holds a lot of prestige with God. You're the patriarch, if you will, of your family. Yeah, you're the head of your family. You're that priest in the home that represents the image of God to your family. And so, fathers, it's so important for you. Yes, it's so important for you to be mindful of your children. These are your children. Keep in mind, that's your seed. Your wife doesn't have a seed. The woman you got pregnant, she doesn't have a seed. You deposited your seed inside of her. That's your seed she's carrying. And no one can raise your seed better than you. And so, yes, I want to talk about fatherhood. King David, we all know the Bible tells us he's a man after God's own heart. But King David stops in the book of Psalms, chapter 8. I think it's in verse 4. He asked God this question: what is man that you are mindful of him? Now, David asked that question because we are tough. I mean, we've got some issues. And I think the reason why we're so tough and we have these issues is because we've never really quite embraced that we are created in the image of God, not in the image of evil. Let's be for real. We know what Adam and Eve did in the garden, but we can't keep going backwards and blaming them for what we're doing right now. We have to pull up our own bootstraps, if you will, and deal with the issues at hand. God says, I created you in my image. Why aren't you walking in my image? Why aren't you raising your children in my image? But man, you have a mighty responsibility. Yes. Lord, what is man that you're so mindful of him? If you're going to call yourself the man, then be the man. Women, you're not the man. You do have a place though. As the woman, you have a place. Stay in your place. Man, get in your place. That's what this message is about. Yes, fathers, be mindful of your seed. God made it very clear. He would never leave you nor forsake you. No, you're created in his image. He's not about to walk away from you. You're walking away from him. That's what's happening. Instead of walking closer with him, you're walking away from him. That's our problem. How do we walk with God? How do we agree with God? Well, you've got to be in his word. You've got to set yourself down and you've got to apply yourself to be a part of God's word, a part of God's wisdom, a part of God's knowledge and understanding. We can't keep doing things on our own, thinking that we're going to bounce into it. We're going to some kind of way stumble into it. No. This manhood thing that we're walking within, no, God has already perfected it for us. Yes, in his son, Jesus Christ. All we have to do is follow the pattern, follow the design, the blueprint that's been laid before us, that's walked this earth before us. That's what we have to do. So when David asked the question, Lord, what is man that you're so mindful of us? Why do you give him so much attention? Why are you focused on him? Why do you care so much for him? See, God is championing our cause. He's rooting for us. He wants us to make it. And so how is it possible that if God is rooting for us, the creator of all of us, how is it that we can walk away from our children, the ones who we've created with our seeds? Somewhere along the way, we've gotten off track. And I want to help us get back on track with this message if I can. I want to at least give you some instructions on how to get yourself back into the right place, in your rightful place that you should be in. Because when you look at it, we all fall short. Something happened to you. I know. Something happened to me. Something happens to all of us. We all have a story. I mean, look at the Bible. It's full of stories, full of characters, and we should be learning from their advice, not so much from all the experience that we get ourselves into. So we all have a story. But man, The greatest story ever told was the story of Jesus Christ. Jesus was so mindful of us that he came and gave his life for us. I pray that you're so mindful of your children, of your wife, that you would give your life for them and for her. See, that's walking in the image of God, that he sent his only begotten son, that you and I could walk in that image as well. And I'm not talking about just dying. I'm talking about dying to yourself. Yes, all your ego and pride, all the lust and cravings you have inside of yourself. If you could just tamper that down, you'd never leave your house. No, you'd never leave your house. You would be right there fighting through the thick and the thin. You'd make sure that your children have the father in the house. And don't get me wrong, I know that things happen in life. Divorce it's on the books, so you can have a divorce. I get it. Separation, I get it. I understand it. Things happen. But those are still your children. Those are still your seeds. Those are your seeds. You're accountable for your seeds. And so you've sown the seed and you've reaped a harvest of children. Are you taking care of those children? Because if you're not, someone else is. I pray that you realize that your children trust you more than anyone on the face of this earth. Fathers, that's what children, they have a heart to trust their fathers. They know that their fathers are protective. And so when you're out of place, they feel like they have no protection. They feel they can't trust anyone. Now, it's a sad statement, but that's just the way it is. You have to be in place. You have to be plugged in. So, men, let me ask you this question. This is a tough question. How do you find it so easy to walk away from your own seeds? I know. We got a lot of excuses. We got a lot of reasons why. But when you deposit a seed and a woman gives birth to it, that is your seed. If you don't get anything out of this message, please get this. You're responsible for your seed. She's not responsible like you. You're responsible. You're accountable. God created us in his image, and so therefore he gave you seeds inside of your body to plant seeds and to grow a harvest. I can't say it enough. That's your harvest to tend to. I didn't say you have to be in the home to do it, because sometimes you just can't. But it's your harvest to tend to. It's your harvest to lead, because if you're not leading them, guess what? Then they're bleeding, and someone else is leading them astray. That's what's happening. I pray that you get it, that your children depend on you. Your children need you. You need to be in your rightful place in the family structures. Fathers, be mindful of your children. Be mindful of your seeds. What does it take to keep the family structure in place? It takes that man being in the family. That's the first thing it takes. It takes that man being in the family. I tried to find someone in the Bible who could really teach us how to be a father. That's what I was looking for. And so there's so many stories in the Bible, so many great men and women who really demonstrate motherhood and fatherhood at the highest level. But I picked out the story about Noah in the Bible. Yeah, Noah in the flood, in the ark. I picked that story out because Noah speaks to us. If we just listen, Noah is speaking to us. Noah's father, Lamech, makes this profound statement that Noah would comfort them concerning the hard work, the toils of their hand, that they had to work this ground that God had cursed because of Adam's disobedience. And so the ground was cursed and it was hard labor for him. And so he says, hey, my son Noah is going to find favor. What he was saying, my son Noah is blessed. He's going to find favor in the Lord. Now, I don't know how he knew that, but he knew that. He called that thing to be as though he wanted to see it. And guess what? God worked it out for him. We're told that God saw all the corruption on the face of the earth, all the violence that man brought upon the earth in all of his ways. Corruption and violence is what God saw. And so God told Noah, I have determined, I have decided to make an end to all flesh. Wow. All flesh, not some flesh. God said all flesh. For the earth is filled with corruption and violence through man. He calls it like it is. So God tells Noah, go and build me an ark. He told him, make it of gopher wood, and then he gave him all the dimensions of the ark. And we know that Noah went and built the ark as God commanded. And God told Noah, you, your wife, your 3 sons and their wives, and 2 of every animal that's unclean, and 7 of the animals that are clean, bring those on the ark. And so Noah did it. And the Bible tells us that all of the fountains of the great deep burst forth. Let me tell you what this looks like. That's the oceans and the lakes and rivers and the ravines and creeks. Everything where water was and where water wasn't, where there was a hole in the ground, water came up. Massive amounts of water came up from the ground. Now, we've seen floods before, but this is bigger than a flood coming up out of the ground. You would think that would be enough, right? That's enough water to get our attention. But no. God has it raining also. And so you have rain coming down from the sky. You have this water bubbling up from the ground. And if that wasn't enough, then the Bible tells us that God opened up the heavens, windows, and water came pouring out of windows from heaven. Now, I've seen the rain. I've seen water coming from the ground. But I've never seen water coming from windows out of heaven. That is a massive amount of water. You don't think that God is getting someone's attention? Oh, my Lord. That's getting all of our attention. It rained for 40 days and 40 nights. The water prevailed so mightily, the Bible tells us, on the earth, that all the mountains were covered up. Do you know what that looks like? All the mountains, the tallest building you can find, were all covered up with water. Everything was submerged up under the water except for the ark. And that's the preface of this particular message. Everything is covered up in your life if you're not in this ark. Your children, when you leave, man, you are the ark of your family. You're the patriarch of your family. You're the head of your family. You are the man. You call yourself the man. You are the man. And God calls you the man. He pulled you out of his image and he called you man. You are the ark of your family. And so when all hell is breaking loose in your family, more than likely you're not in the ark. More than likely you're out of position. You're out of place. It's like a puzzle. You put this puzzle together and there's always this one piece missing, and it's under the sofa, it's under the rug, it's somewhere, but it's always missing, and you have to hunt for it. Don't allow your children to have to hunt for you. You need to be right there in the room, in the house. It's your house. Yes, you're the man of the house. It's your house. And you need to be in that position that God has placed you in. The man of the house, the man of the family, the head of the family. I can't say it enough. Man, you are so important. That King David has to ask the question, what is man that you think so highly of him? That's what he's asking. You're so mindful of him. God said, because he's in my image and I take care of my own. If God is taking care of his own, why aren't you taking care of your own? Hallelujah. Why aren't you taking care of yours? Man, you're the ark. Look here. I just told you about all this water, massive water pouring down. And the ark is the only thing that's going to survive this flood. And if you leave your children, if you leave that house, your children are left to drown because the ark is not there. You've left them uncovered. I know you didn't mean to. I know things happen. It wasn't your fault. But when you walk away from your home with your children, guess what? You leave them exposed. You leave wolves in sheep clothing to come after them. You leave them naked in some sense. Man, find your rightful place. I don't care what you have to do. Your children are too important. You're too important to God. He made a way out of no way for you. And what are you doing? You can't just walk away. You can't just plant your seed all over this world and think there's no repercussion that's going to come. This world right now is struggling because we've got so many men out of the ark. We've got so many men who's taken the ark away from their family, who's taken the covering away from their family, who's taken the blessing away from their family. Your place is within this family structure. That's what your place is. God planted you in a position to have seeds. And so you decided to deposit that seed. Well, guess what? It's your opportunity. It's your responsibility to take care of that seed. It's the flood that happened in Noah's days. It's happening right now. It's a flood of an abandonment, though, of fathers in the household. That's what's happening. It's a whole different flood. A flood of the ark not being in place to save the family structure. Man, you are that missing piece. I do understand things happen, but you should never let your children feel that they're not loved. You are that piece that never needs to be missing in your family. My father told me once that, Donnie, I don't care what happens in your family, you never leave your house. My father had 12 children. He said, you never leave your house. Now, I was young. I didn't understand exactly what he meant, But I know what he said. Never leave your house. My father never left our house. And so I have that same type of mindset, never leave my house. I don't care what happens in this house. I'm not leaving my house. I'm not leaving my children. I can't trust anyone to raise my children like I can. God made me in his image, and in his image, I will survive. In his image, I will thrive. You are so blessed, brothers. My brothers and sisters, you are so blessed. Everyone has a position. And when you get out of your position, guess what? The ark is floating all by itself. No one is leading it. It's just floating. And that's when your kids begin to bleed because you're not leading. And that's when strangers come in and try to take over. Man, be in your rightful place. God has positioned you to be the head and not the tail. Are you in your place? Or are you out of place? If you're out of place, you still can make this thing right. You still can plug back into the family unit, whatever it takes. If it's long distance, whatever it takes, you need to plug back in. Too many of us are allowing our families to drown. Do you realize that all the child knows is what they know from what they hear? But a child believes in their heart that when the father leaves, that they did something wrong, that they caused the father to leave. They take it on themselves, that I must not have been pretty enough. I must not have been bright enough. I must not have the right hair. I must not have the right eye color. I must not have been tall enough. I mean, the kids blame themselves because that's what their little minds think. That because I was born, that daddy left mama because it was me. It's something that I did. You see what you've done to your children? And so now your child has that mindset that they did something wrong. So guess what? When they get married, they take that into their marriage because daddy never plugged back in. You've got to plug back in. You've got to become the ark that carries your family through troubled times, through hard times, through pain, through suffering, yes, and through joy, But you are the head. You are the man, and if you're the man, you're the patriarch. You are the priest in your family. What are you doing that's so important that you leave your children with this rejection type of feeling? Because a child will feel rejected and abandoned. You know what that equals? That equals incarceration in a child's mind. My daddy left me because he didn't love me. No one really loves me. I can't trust no one. That's what a child is thinking. When you leave them, when you abandon them, that's what they feel. And not that you don't love them, but they feel you don't love them. They feel you love something else more than them, that you left it for them. That's what they feel. And so you got to plug back in and make sure your child understands, no, I'm not abandoning you. But I did have to leave this relationship. But I love you more than ever. The Lord never abandoned us. He's wiped us out before time and time again. He's had to discipline us before time and time again because we're hard-headed. We got an ego problem. We got pride problem. We got a lust problem. Come on. Some of you got some demons for problems. And God is telling you, I need you to stay in the ark. Until I allow the waters to abate, I need you to stay in the ark. I need you to cleave to your family. Don't leave them, cleave to them. Because the more you cleave to them, the more they will cleave to you. And then they will have an ark mentality into their relationships. Right now, they have an abandonment mentality. They have a let's get up out of here mentality. Because that's what they watch daddy and mommy do. I pray that you realize how important it is that your child never feels abandoned. Noah tells us in Genesis 6, chapter 6, verse 8 and 9. The Bible tells us that Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. That's what took place here. The Bible tells us these are the generation of Noah. Noah was a just man. And that was my point. Noah was a perfect man in his generation. And the most important part of this message, Noah walked with God. You see, when you're walking with God, you'll stay in that ark. It takes a man to stay plugged in to his family unit. It takes a man. There's so much temptation out here. There's so much lust out here. There's so much evilness out here that we all will walk away and leave our children unprotected. But when you do, you're leaving them to drown. And that's what's happening. They're drowning. They're being so submerged up under the water that they can't stay on top. God submerged all the things he wanted to destroy up under the water, but he kept the ark floating because he had a plan. He had a plan for Noah and his family to replenish the earth. He has a plan for you and your family to replenish the earth. But your family needs to know that you're pure. They need to know that Daddy loves me, that he didn't leave me because he didn't like me. He left me because it was a bad situation, but he still takes care of his responsibility. He's always showing up at all my events. He's always spending time with me. See, stop showing up for the basketball game. That's okay, that's cool. But you need to be there with the homework sometime. You need to be there plugged in when they have a bad night to where they need to talk to someone. Your phone needs to be available. They need to be able to call you 24/7 with no restrictions. That's the Father who's being mindful of his children. That's the Father who's being mindful of his seed. That's the Father who's just, who's perfect in this generation, especially in this generation. It don't take much to be perfect in this generation. There's so many bad things happening all around us. And who walks with God. I pray that you walk with God. I pray that you talk with God. I pray that your ways are like God's ways. The Bible tells us that Noah found grace with God because of his walk with God. And therefore his whole family were saved. Can you say the same about your family? Are you walking with God where your whole family is saved and safe? That's what God wants with you. He wants you to plug back in. He wants you to get back in that ark. He wants you to find the piece of this puzzle that's up under the sofa and put it back in place so that this family can be a complete unit. That's what God is asking for. That's what your children are asking for. Man, be mindful of your seed. Let them be victorious by watching you be the example, the image that they desperately need. I pray that you don't forget Romans 10:9. Confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God has raised him from the dead. And guess what? You too shall be saved. You be blessed and stay in your ark.